Hey everyone, RogueGold here. Welcome back to the Division 2. Today, I want to break down and discuss everything with the surprise new exotic that we saw release in the game this past week, that being the Prima Donna marksman rifle. If you were unaware of this being dropped, it got added to the loot table within the Paradise Lost incursion, kind of as a precursor and reason to dive back into that content ahead of the release of the new incursion, Broken Rain, which is arriving on August 11th. It's got the same drop structure and chances as the Ouroboros, that being a 1% chance each time you run the incursion from boss drops, as well as a once weekly per character 10% chance from the final chest. Now, this video may have come a day or two sooner had it not taken me 13 runs to get one. I was spamming a lot of level 40 boosted characters this week, but I'll be honest, as a small tangent, it was a lot of fun seeing the matchmaking queues be more populated for Paradise Lost. I always thought it was a really fun piece of content. It made me reminisce on grinding through Division 1 incursions during global events. Those were traditionally a bit more matchmaking friendly. I'm really excited for Broken Rain to get here, but we're here today to discuss the Prima Donna. It should be an interesting breakdown. Its talent allows for some very interesting gameplay interactions to occur that I think might give it some added relevance beyond what a marksman would normally receive. So we'll get straight to it. If you enjoy this breakdown and you want to see future Division 2 content from me moving forward, then be sure to subscribe. Have to give a major shout out and thank you to all of our channel members. These videos would not be possible without your support, so thank you all so much for everything that you do. But without further ado, let's dive in. So, this is a look at the Prima Donna right here. It very much has that merit family and merit estate theme, very sleek. Here are a look at its stats. Now, this weapon is based off of and handles like an MK20 model, but notably, the devs have altered the base stats from what you would expect to typically see on that weapon. I did a side-by-side here so that you can visualize. The MK20 has a much faster firing and lower damage profile, but the Prima Donna has been tweaked to function much closer to an M700 in terms of damage and RPM. That said, it does still retain its fully automatic property, where if you hold the trigger, it will repeatedly fire. So kind of an interesting one-of-a-kind blend with this. But scrolling on down, you can see its mods. It's got a solid 45% total headshot damage across the scope and the muzzle, on top of 15% weapon handling. But the real sticking point, of course, is the talent. This comes in two parts, kind of like the Eagle Bear has. The first part here says you can look. When out of combat, receive 10 stacks. In PvP, that is 5 stacks. This weapon deals 12.5% amplified damage, 12% in PvP per stack. Then at the bottom, there is but you can't touch. It says one stack is automatically consumed to fully repair one instance of damage you receive. One stack replenishes every 3 seconds or 8 seconds for PvP. So the easy part of this is the damage portion, right? At full stacks, this gives you equal amount of amplified damage to the Shroud exotic, which is interesting. It's definitely a hard hitter. But what I think a lot of people are going to overlook here, or at least I've not seen too much conversation on this yet, is the healing portion of things. You may wonder what exactly one instance of damage means. Well, it means a single tick, a single number, but because it works like that, it means that it will protect you, in theory, from any conceivable amount of damage, even one-shots. Now, maybe there are some weird encounters or interactions out there in the game that are hard-coded, but for example, I went into the Dark Zone and had my friend headshot me with a pretty high damage nemesis, and you can see, because I had Prima Donna stacks up, I was able to absorb all of that damage. Pretty wild, right? Now, I'm sure some people are immediately going to go, okay, well, that's got to get nerfed, specifically talking about PvP. But what you have to remember is that it protects you against a single point of damage, regardless of how much that damage is. Meaning, if you're running a sniper or a shotgun and someone is using this weapon to block your shots, you can pull out an SMG, an AR, whatever, even if it's shooting Ps, and shoot them 10 times, or just 5 times in PvP, and strip them of all of their protective stacks. So it's not something that I see being overly abused or manipulated. Again, it can be rid of quite easily, but it does introduce some pretty fascinating interactions. For example, I ran into a bonk build in Conflict while I was testing it, and as I'm sure many of my Conflict players out there can attest to, that is one of the more aggravating loadouts to try and fight in the current meta. But because each melee is just one tick of damage, I was immune from their attacks. Now, I ended up dying because they threw a Stinger Hive and worked around the mechanic, but you get the the idea. There are some very interesting scenarios that you could theoretically protect yourself against by using this. So that's the weapon. While we're on the topic, let's talk about its usage in PvP a little bit. Don't worry, if you only care for PvE, we've got that in here as well, timestamp below. But I wanted to give this a run in PvP to see if it had any viability, and I would say that it absolutely does. Now, the footage you're seeing is not its maximum damage potential, since it offers you up to 60% amp damage, because remember, you have both a lower stack value and less stacks in PvP, but 60% is still a lot, so I went for sort of a hybrid approach using core strength. Now, it's not going to be able to one-shot high armored players, but I was able to one-tap a good number of builds, and ones that I could not. I just danced around for a little bit using my skills, and then retreated, shot again. Anyways, this is the loadout if you're curious. Again, I have no dedicated damage rolls on here, save for the ninja bike, but then of course you do get the shared stats from the core strength talent. But 1.6 million armor, high-powered skills, one-tapping, lower armor players. Not too bad. Of course, this is far from the only way to run it, but I thought this was a fun loadout nonetheless. Now, let's shift over to talk about PvE. I ran a much more traditional marksman loadout for this, and it performed about as well as I could have hoped. For having comparable damage to the Shroud, except you don't have to worry about targeting the proper hierarchy of enemies, it does very solid work. And although the one-shot protection might have slightly fewer applications in PvE than in PvP, it still has its moments. I even saw a healer in Escalation Tier 10 running it just to be able to more safely run over and revive people. And overall, I think if you want a lower risk, lower stress marksman build as a solo player, yet you still want to get those super high damage values that category of a build can offer, then the Prima Donna does that very well, since it will heal you up, and those stacks refresh every 3 seconds in PvE. Very snappy. So if you're curious, this was the loadout I threw together for it. Somebody in my stream this week gave me the recommendation to try it out with the Exodus gloves, and that ended up being a combo that I liked a lot. It's a very similar methodology as mixing that item with the chameleon, right? If you exit combat, which you do whenever the smoke pops, then you get all 10 stacks on the Prima Donna refreshed. And even though that's not necessary, right, they do recharge every 3 seconds. If you just position bad at one point and get beamed by an elite, you're not then waiting 30 seconds for your damage to ramp back up. You're right back in the action with full armor and full damage. And while yes, you will not be achieving the maximum possible damage by not running stuff like the overdogs or by sacrificing your backpack talent, 125% amp damage from the Prima Donna itself will be more than enough in 95% of content out there. I decided to run it with Hotshot. You could also run it with aces and eights if you wanted. You could go high ends. There's tons of ways to do it, but overall I think it fits nicely into the marksman options that we have at our disposal. Well, there you have it, everybody. That is my quick breakdown and review of the new Prima Donna exotic marksman rifle after farming for it all week. If I had to give kind of a final word or a too long didn't watch, it is a very solid weapon. Archetype and damage wise, it competes with the other top contenders out there, obviously save for something like the utility of Determined, but I think the real sleeper value of this comes in with its healing mechanic and one-shot protection. I mean, just the other day I was rerunning the Ironworks Foundry Master Mission, and I forgot about that hallway where the snipers can pop out and literally one-shot you. If I'd had the Prima Donna, I could have much more comfortably gotten to cover, made my move from there, and I think there's cases like that where this will be nice. It wouldn't shock me if speedrunners or hardcore raiders find other niche uses for that ability. Overall, it's fun, it's strong. Do I think you need to go out and madly grind Paradise Lost to try and get one today? Probably not. Do keep in mind though that the next 2 global events coming up on the calendar right now, Ambush and Assault, the devs are enabling you to run those within the incursion for the first time ever, again as kind of prep and incentive to run it before Broken Rain arrives. So if you've never played it or you just want to get some easy rewards, it is a guaranteed exotic and a prototype cores cache once per week per character. Get in there, play it, enjoy it, and maybe you'll get surprised with the Prima Donna to drop. You never know. So that's all for me. I would love to hear all of your guys' thoughts, whether you are just watching my gameplay and breakdown of this here, whether you've already gotten the weapon for yourself in game. But thank you all so much for coming by and watching. I'll catch you back soon. RogueGold. Ow. Oh! We just got a Ravenous! Haha! I might not be friendly. Let's go.
Coming to the Division 2.
Let's go!
And